Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Radix Roundtable for April. I'm Adam, Chief Strategy Officer at RDX Works, and joining me is Matt, the Chief Product Officer, Russell, the Chief Technology Officer, and Jeremy, the Chief Marketing Officer. How are we all doing today?
Good.
It's funny how we always lose one person. We haven't had to deal with the 5-man roundtable yet.
It's icky, the tiling at that point. We have to make sure someone's always off.
I reckon it's a conspiracy from our video editor, just like finding some reason that one of us has to be absent.
Mm-hmm.
Although I believe that this is the first time we'll have our new branding style on this video as well. I hope. I mean, if it's the old one, it's going to look really silly now, but it's done. So if you don't see it on this one, it will be on future videos, all new styles. So well done to our design team for that.
Hope it's this one, so Piers is jealous. He missed the good one.
He missed the inaugural.
I think his face will still be on the thumbnail, though.
Why?
On the thumbnail template.
I think he's going to be jealous because of how much fun we're going to have.
If you don't do the talk, you don't get the thumbnail. That's what I say.
I'll put in a special request. Talking of special requests, we've had some great questions submitted from the community, so thank you very much. Of course, if you want to submit more for next month, then go into Telegram, Discord, whatever, #roundtable, ask your question, and one of our amazing community team will pick that up so we can discuss it on this call. So first question is actually from me, which is a recap of the big news that came this week, which is Scrypto 0.4 came out. So I think there may be someone or a couple of people on this call who would like to talk about some of the cool things that can be done with that and what the response has been so far.
Of course. Matt, do you want to lead off? In fairness?
I can. Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, one of the funny things is we were kind of getting reactions to 0.4 even before we released it. We've gotten this cadre of people in the developer community that have been digging into the preview branch on GitHub and basically been watching 0.4 as it's been in development, and they've even been like giving us feedback on it and starting to build stuff ahead of time and everything. So it's like that alone indicates that we're heading in a good direction, which makes me feel really good that people are that excited about seeing what's coming and working with it. So they kind of got primed. So basically the response we got immediately after launching yesterday was everyone goes like, "Cool, it's out. All right, now I'm reading the docs. Like, talk to me tomorrow. I got to figure all this stuff out." But I mean, what people have been saying has been really, really encouraging. It's like, I'll let Russ talk about kind of the new capabilities, but I'd say that everyone is like, all right, now we've got another chunk of things that we couldn't do before, more territory to explore, more things to build. So this is what every one of the releases we're trying to do, that deliver another chunk of stuff where now you can expand capability and you're getting closer to building something that you think could really be deployed on Babylon. So I think it's great.
Yeah, one of the big things we enabled, which is you can now hook up a web front end. There hasn't been time enough for people to actually go do that yet. So we're still awaiting feedback there. But on the other parts, which are that we have a whole new authorization model. So like what controls access to a method and certain resource actions, that's all a single unified model now. And the response on that has been, it's kind of the slow burn of you first look at it, it takes a while to work its way through your head, the implications of this. Then you get a bit of that. You can see the light bulb moments happening for people like, wow, this is really cool. And
the revelation moments?
The technical moments of revelation happens, right? Jer's favorite, the Timor. The big one that I love and I was eager to talk about and people are now seizing on is we have this concept of we call it a transient resource, right? And this is, you could think of it as, it's like an asset-oriented way to say, you can call something I control a transaction and then go do whatever you want, but I can ensure that you, later in the transaction before it completes, call me back again or call some other thing I control. And so what this enables is, the simplest example of is it lets you do an asset-oriented flash flow. And so you come to me and I have, my component has a pool with, say we're doing a flash load of XRD. You would do a flash load of 1 million XRD. I literally just hand you 1 million XRD plus one little transient token that I've minted, that the only thing about this token is that you can't ever deposit it in a vault. You can't ever securely store it. And because Radix Engine guarantees that at the end of a transaction, you can never have a dangling resource. You can never have something that's like, oh, it didn't get stored. The transaction now can't ever complete unless that token gets destroyed because it can't be deposited. And in the case of the flash loan, the only thing that has the authority to burn that token, to destroy it, that transient token, is the same method where you call me back and say, well, I loaned you 1 million XRD. You owe me, 1,001,000 or something back. And so if you've given me back at least 1,001,000, I can now destroy the transient token and your transaction.
Right. I'm not going to take your little transient token until you pay me back, and which means that the whole thing gets rejected unless my requirements are satisfied.
And this has a bunch of cool implications for if I have an ecosystem of things that I want to say, hey, you can use this, but you got to make sure if you get my Oracle for free, you call my token purchasing service. I can make all these things happen in a way that's easy to think about, unlike other places where you'd have some confusing reentrancy call or something that goes trying to track the originator of the call all the way through or something like that. We can just go, don't even worry about it. If you have a thing that you say, I'll take this action as long as some later action happens, give them a transient token and make sure whatever has the authority to destroy that transient token is the place where you secure, yep, what I wanted to have happen did happen.
What I love about that at a community level is it's a really good example about kind of the reaction 0.4, because it's like if you just drop this on a Solidity developer, you'd be like, hey, on Radix, we have transient resource. And they go like, well, so is there an EIP that does that? Like, are you guys replicating something? It's something that only makes sense in the asset-oriented model that we're establishing. And so the guys in the community that have absorbed this asset-oriented way of doing anything, it was like, we were kind of wondering, like inside the team, we came up with this idea. We're like, oh shit, this thing is really cool. There's all this stuff we can do, and it really enables these use cases that really make sense, and it fits into the asset-oriented model. But we weren't sure that are people going to get this? And the cool thing is, like, the people that have absorbed this philosophy are going, oh yeah, you can do this stuff. This is so cool. We got a more enthusiastic reaction to that than I was expecting. And to me, it's a really good test that the asset-oriented model is really sinking into people's brains, and they're realizing all the cool things you could do with it. It was an interesting little test of that, and I've been really excited to see it go somewhere.
How do you know someone, Matt,
successfully rewire people's brains?
I'm curious, and if this is too far off topic, feel free to slap me around, Adam. I know you're not shy about that. How do you know that a developer, or anybody for that matter, has achieved asset-oriented mindframe? Like, what are some of the indicators that somebody's like that?
Yeah, so this is I've had a lot of conversations like this where I go, they get it. Like, it usually is someone that's like, they're in the community, maybe they're kind of new. I was talking to someone yesterday about this, I forget who it was. And they'll ask a question. They'll be like, so how do you do this thing with Scrypto? And I go, well, actually, we don't do that thing. Here's a different pattern for it. What we do is I think someone asked me, they're sort of like, hey, how do you like blacklist a component? Like, oh, there's like some bad thing and I want to prevent that from calling my component. And I was like, well, actually, that's like what you want to do is think of it in terms of like authorization to your thing. Like, who do you want to allow to this, and hand back an NFT to them that you can treat as kind of a user badge. And you can, if you don't like someone, you can revoke that badge. And you can set those parameters on the resource. The people that have gotten to that point, to answer your question, the people that have they've had the mind click for the asset oriented thing is I say that to them, they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's way better. It's they've already got the foundation there where you sort of show them the asset oriented pattern. They're like, oh yeah, the way I was thinking about it was not the right way of going about the problem, and this is going to make my life a lot easier. And people seem to get that pretty early on, and then once you get to that point, you just keep showing them the patterns. It's sort of like, here's the way you do this thing. Here's the way, if you want to do an NFT that you need to pay royalties on it every time it transfers, like you do that we don't need a new type of token like you do in Ethereum. This is just going to be like, you're going to have a clearinghouse component that's going to be managing this for you, and there's going to be a badge associated with that. Like, every time you have those conversations with people, they go, oh yeah, that's cool, give me more of those. Like, how do you solve this use case? How do you solve this use case? Those are the asset-oriented heads.
I see it when they answer their own questions 5 minutes later. Or sometimes somebody responds and you don't actually quite do it that way, because that's someone who's had the mindset adjustment. And then they go, oh, okay, I get it. And then you look at the Discord history, and it's like something like 5 to 20 minutes passes. And then they have a follow-up that goes, oh, wait, I actually can throw out this whole thing and do this way. And you go, yep, your brain has now been rewired. You're thinking the asset-oriented way. And this happens all the time if you just sit in Discord and watch it.
as a non-developer, I just imagine that's the kind of thing where you see someone like the late night commercial for some strange tool you never knew you need, and you're like, my life would be so much
Right.
easier if I just had that one thing.
So now we're doing
Just clicked,
Scrypto
like, why would anyone do
infomercials
this?
is what you're saying? Let's do
Yeah,
it.
we should do the thing where it's like the person
Maybe
has
not.
the klutzy thing when you put the red X over it. Like that's on the Solidity way. Do it
Right.
the
But wait, there's more. Yeah.
Right.
Matt comes in our frame and talks about badgers. I can see it now. So, of course, with this, there's been some questions as well from the community with the release. And one of them was from SpaceX Time saying, are devs still going to be rewarded for building Scrypto examples that they share with the community with this new release?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. None of that's going away. I mean, this is something where, the whole point of Alexandria and where we are with Scrypto right now is building community and continuing to like get the community engaged in giving back, helping other people learn, conveying the asset-oriented mentality to other people as they come in. And a lot of that comes down to really good example codes. You can just see like, oh, you can do this and this and this and this. And this isn't stuff that the Radix team built. This is just people that have absorbed this way of working and have built cool things. So no question, we want to keep rewarding people for doing those things because those are really great engines for growing the community further. So it's going to be like, we have the program where when you sign up for the developer program, if you do your first check-in to our community repo, we do $75 worth of XRD as a reward for doing that, for just kind of demonstrating like, look, you've planted your flag in the ground. You're now a Scrypto programmer and you're showing your code off to the world. Then we also do examples that move into some of the other more featured repos that we have. We've been doing other incentive rewards for people to do really really strong, well-documented examples that we want to highlight for people. We incentivize that as well. We have the competitions that we're doing. We finished the Dex Challenge. Next week, we're going to be doing another one around oracles. If we haven't mentioned that yet, that'll be interesting. That's going to be another competition with some more prizes associated with it. And to us, like the cool thing about those hackathons is that the result of those is a big pile of really interesting example code. And the Dex one was great for that. It was like, this went beyond what we would have even thought of as DEXs. It was sort of like, imagine like an off-ledger OTC system that used the transaction manifest to guarantee that you could order match between these people. Like there's some really interesting stuff that came out of that we would have never thought of. So definitely those programs are going to be continuing for, through Babylon release and probably beyond.
Awesome. And so kind of carrying on from that, there was a follow-up question as well, which is about how we're finding the dev ecosystem growing and the developer community growing. Is it going along with our expectations? And basically, how do we feel about it at the moment?
Yeah, one thing just to remind, just as a reminder, like our goal right now, specifically with ecosystem building, is building community. Like I was just saying, it's the idea of we want to, the way in which we're going to compete against other, Ethereum primarily that has all the momentum right now, is by building up a community that demonstrates to the world that, look, we're not just a tech stack. We're not just a project that's raised a bunch of money. Like we are. Did we lose Adam?
We've lost Adam.
He's coming back. There he is. Switching to the other camera. It's about building a community, like an organic community of people that are building with Scrypto because they honestly believe it's a better tool for the job. They're spending their own time on it because it's just exciting, because it's fun to work with. And so all of the incentives and all of the programs that we're running are around building that enthusiasm and building that community, because when we do get to Babylon, when all this moves on to the public network, that's the point where people are going to start considering making business decisions about actually building part of a functional DeFi ecosystem. And the first question they're going to ask is like, are people using this stuff? Is there a bunch of example code? Are there people that I can hire? Is there like demonstration that people actually care about this way of building stuff and this network? And so this is what we're trying to do right now. And from that point of view, that community building has been going really, really well. It's about sort of the quality of the people in that community and how much they're giving back. And it's fantastic. This is the point where like our last two really great hires into the RX team were people that we just drew from the community because they showed up, they started building great Scrypto code. They were not only building great code, but were contributing to the community in a really meaningful way, like helping new people come on board and helping build stuff to people to explore different use cases. And we're like, yeah, can we just hire you guys full time, and brought them in, and they are amazing contributors. This is Clement and Omar. I'll just name drop them. Those guys are both fantastic. So like, to me, this is a demonstration that the community we have is real and is strong, rather than just being, this is my flash mob thing. These aren't just like mercenaries that are showing up because like, oh yeah, you guys are handing out money, so I'll do this and then I'll move on to something else. These are people that are here because they want to be here and they like the philosophy that we're pushing with Scrypto. So, but I think Adam probably can get more into some of like the metrics and this kind of stuff, which is also really exciting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
before we jump in, let me just finish on the tech side, because I know we're going to go into marketing. Is just the two things I wanted more than anything were, one, that we get a good group of experts, of people who can do really interesting things, and we absolutely have succeeded on that. And the people have, far exceeded my expectations. And as you said, we hired 2 full-time into RDX Works because they were so far ahead of our expectations. And the second thing is I wanted to make sure that we were welcoming of new people and didn't just cater towards, we have these 10 people who are really good, and for everybody else, there is no community. And it has been amazingly good. And people can come in, and we have a separate channel in Discord, even for there's Scrypto Rust beginners, with the whole point of, even if you just have a thing of, I don't understand why this won't compile, please ask that question. Do that, and someone will answer to you. And you people, if you go look at the history, people always get an answer, and it's usually by, within a few minutes, someone has gone to the point of, trying to help you with it. Literally send me your entire code file and let's work through this. And they're doing that out of the goodness of their hearts. So that's, both are extraordinarily encouraging signs to me that we have a fantastic foundation for the Scrypto community. So just now, go ahead, Jer. I just wanted to get in, that there's a couple facets to it.
Yeah, no, that's the real value there. I mean, I think that the welcoming community is something I've definitely heard from people across the board, that part of the culture of Radix is to just be welcoming and helpful. And, that's so refreshing, as opposed to this shilling and all that kind of nonsense that you're used to dealing with. So one of the high points, perhaps the high point of the month, I think we would all agree, was the developer event that we had in Lisbon. I mean, it was just seeing all the energy. If you haven't watched that rap video, you should, because it's just world class. And obviously the team did a great job, and both on the logistics side and the content side. But just to kind of echo what you guys were saying, I mean, I was reading the post-event survey, and the thing that jumped out at me was only 20% of the attendees said the highlight was the party. And like everybody else was like, more coding, more Scrypto. And I was like, wow, who goes to an event is like the best part is just coding? And like, I think that really speaks to the kind of value that we're delivering, and also the kinds of people who are gravitating towards us. So you just love seeing that kind of product market fit happening, and just the energy that comes along with it. So I think the key thing for us is now we have a template for, what a successful event looks like. We have some pretty good learnings about how to drive awareness and attendance to those events. And I think we're going to be in a position to really start scaling that out. And obviously with 0.4, we got even more ammunition. So I'm liking where we're headed on the trajectory of all this stuff.
I think one of the things that I love most is the technical moments of revelation, as we've termed them internally. Is the first couple of tweets were exciting, about people being like, "Oh, I've just used Scrypto. It was X or Y was amazing," or "This was so easy. I never expected to be able to do this." It's the fact that they've now hit a rhythm where, like, every couple of days we get another one in from usually people we didn't even see from the community already. They just had this complete journey by themselves. And not only are they really exciting for us, but we're seeing that in the community themselves, and the wider Radix community get excited about that. And I think that's what's really powerful for building this community aspect. Is it's not just that you kind of have that single moment, you see other people joining this momentum, which is which is the goal. It's why the strategy Matt and others had was so strong, of building the community first is the really important part as we lead up to Babylon and beyond that.
Yeah, and if you're following us on Twitter and obviously in the community channels, you see these now daily. We've been capturing these quotes, and I mean, we have just a huge warehouse now, and it's just growing. And it's just, I mean, this is just absolute gold, because at the end of the day, a fundamental tenet of marketing is no one cares what you say about yourself. They care what other people say about you. And just to have such verifiable testimonials from people about the value and ease of use and all the wonderful benefits of Scrypto all the way down is just awesome. So super awesome job by the product and the builders team.
Awesome. So is there any kind of timeline? This was another question I've seen come up quite a bit in the community. Like, with the success of Lisbon, are there more things coming up in terms of developer events, hackathons? Is there anything on the cards? Is there anything people can expect from those?
Yeah, do you
Matt,
want to do
100%.
you want me to do this one? Or yeah, there's definitely stuff coming up here. Like Jared is saying, Lisbon provided us a really nice template for a particular kind of event. It's sort of like, bring people in. And by the way, these were mostly like, there were a few people that were in the Radix community, but these are mostly just developers in the local area who were interested in DeFi, Web3. They kind of wanted to be on the cutting edge. What's this going on? I'm going to come to this thing. And then they walked out Scriptonauts. They walked out like knowing how to do this stuff, and they've actually built stuff, and now we expect that they're going to grow the community. So we can now use that template again for those kinds of events, and we can tack these onto the things. So, this is getting into your territory, but I think we're going to be doing something at Consensus and some other events around those kinds of events. And I think we're also doing the some AMAs that Omar and Clement are doing. These are like virtual events where it's sort of like, hey, here's an hour you can come up, just ask crypto questions and so forth. And these are generating a lot of enthusiasm too. We've also got I think I mentioned this publicly somewhere. I don't think this is news, but there's a really good organization called DevPost that runs these online hackathons. So we're working with them to put together a couple events. So those are coming up as well. So yeah. In fact,
oh my God.
Wait, do that again.
Do you like the mug?
The
Dude,
mug.
Hold that mug up again. That was insane. Oh my God. It's like I have an EVM mug and you have a Radix mug. That's basically what just happened.
People
Jesus.
commented that, do I always have a larger drinking container? And yes.
How much
Wait
bigger
do you see next month?
Yeah, next month's going to be good. Wow.
He's going to have like a
They'll be well away from the
swimming pool.
desk. So yeah.
Like there's a crane that's going to come in and open up. What were you talking about, Matt?
It doesn't matter. By comparison, it's meaningless next to that.
How do we grow the volume of people in the developer community, and what do we have planned? I guess that's where we can.
I mentioned a few things. Oh, the other thing I'll mention, this is another big one, is that we've just brought in a head of developer ecosystem, guy named Kobe. He's awesome. So he's adding to, like, Clement was kind of our first member of that team, and we drew him from the community, and he's been knocking it out of the park. Now Kobe's coming in to sort of start establishing a high level strategy for, like, not just sort of running these events, but expanding what we do. So thinking about university programs and other ways of recognizing developers, and how do we leverage the developer program sign up we have in more ways. Like, he's starting to put together ideas for how we expand these programs. And how this even gets into the developer ecosystem fund that we have, the token fund we have. How are we going to start making use of that in the back part of the year? So I'm expecting that we'll have some interesting plans coming out about that in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe's already proved a tremendous amount of value for the team, and it's just he's a great interface into the marketing organization for us. I mean, now, like you said, we have this template. So we can start putting more of these on the books as we head towards Babylon. You alluded to Consensus. We've got, plans to sort of we are doing real-time demos at Consensus. We're going to have a special specific developer day at the Saturday of Consensus. So we have we've revamped our signage, we revamped our flyers, materials, got some new swag, so that's always good. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. And then I guess teaser, we can check that out. This proves if people actually watch the roundtable or not.
Yeah.
This is not as cool as Matt's pipe from last month, but we speaking of the ROI of events, we had at South by Southwest, we had a booth. Dude, we're all going to stop losing our train of thought there. And let's just say we had a former number one Billboard music artist who is now a dedicated coder, stopped by our booth. And now, after much conversation, he's a scriptonaut, thanks to a lot of work by Russ and others. And we're going to be doing a hackathon with him. So more details on that to come in the next couple of weeks. But it will give us exposure to a whole new set of audiences. And I think even more important than that from a reach perspective, although that's really valuable, is it really brings home the message of like, look, if this guy can do it, like Scrypto is accessible. Like this is something that really empowers builders to create great stuff. And I think that's, we are about giving people the most delightful developer experience anywhere in DeFi. And I think we're going to be able to really back up that claim in a nice way. So it's very exciting to see all of that. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening on the developer marketing stuff, and big shout out to Kobe for helping to spearhead that.
I've also got to give a big congratulations to both Matt and you, Jeremy, for name dropping the Scriptonauts. There was a big internal discussion about the proper name for what we want to run with for Scrypto users, and Scriptonauts won out convincingly.
Yeah.
There were a few unhappy people. I won't mention them here.
I voted for the Church of Scriptology. That didn't get to be that wasn't super popular.
Yeah, it was a quick way for a marketing team to get removed from the builders.
Scriptorati? No, that didn't work either. We had some good ideas. No bad ideas in brainstorming, man.
True. So moving on, the next one is a really good question, actually, which is all about our thoughts on kind of governance, how that's going, and what governance roadmap is developing for the Radix Public Network. And so this is actually one that I've been doing a lot of work on in the last couple of weeks and months to get into a place where we can confidently move forward. So some of you may have seen that we had a job spec out for a governance lead to join. And there was actually a challenge for that around if a plane crashed on an island, how would you go about rebuilding civilization if there was no hope for survival? And the reason we went with a challenge for this is that, unsurprisingly, there isn't very many people who have built governance systems from scratch who are still alive today. And therefore, we needed people who were thinking about these things in interesting ways, because one of the things we do think is that governance is critically important to an effective decentralized network in the long term. But as with all things we do at Radix, it's like, what will the end state probably need? And that's like in 40 years' time, if we had $400 trillion on the network and we had every single person on the planet pretty much interacting in the financial system running on a DLT, what would governance need to look like there? And actually, that's a really big problem. And so we've had some really great interviews, some really great applications. And so we're getting to the end stages now, and hopefully we'll have someone in place for that. And then that really kicks off this process of really deep diving into what does governance actually mean for a network with the scope and ambition of what Radix has? How do we actually implement that in a way that is effective both in the short term and for the long term, and gets opinions from kind of key stakeholders? So when this person is in, obviously they're going to need some time getting up to speed. They're going to need to be talking a lot to people internally who've got experience on this, to the community stakeholders and the different subsets of the community, to start putting together proposals and deeper research into what do we need to have to make governance successful, not only now, but potentially in 40, 50, 100 years' time on this network that has such a big scope. I'm not sure if anyone has anything they want to add on kind of governance side of things. I know, Matt, it's a good topic that you've covered in the past.
Yeah, it's a total greenfield. I mean, there was a while where I was on an IEEE sort of board. There was a group of people that were trying to, it was actually at that point, I think they've gone beyond that, but when I was there, they were literally just trying to establish a standard for what was meant by the term blockchain governance. And that was really hard on its own. It's just a complete greenfield of, you're talking about this commonwealth that carries assets and identity, and it's free to join, and like all these aspects. And it's like you get into these, really, really large scale topics about like, what does governance mean, and comparisons to nation states, and how nations come into being, and how their governance drifts over time. And like, I mean, it's a very, very deep philosophical topic. This, blockchain governance for something with the scope of what DLT should be capable of. The solution ain't going to be like, oh yeah, just, token based voting on hard forks. Like, it's, this is like saying that, like, well, we've got a monarchy, that's good enough. We don't need better forms of governance. As long as there's a king, we're fine. It's like, it's that kind of like, this needs to be a system that really represents the philosophy that we're trying to build into that technology level. It needs to be built into the culture of governance around this whole thing. It's a very, very difficult topic. So we just got to find the right people to really make meaningful progress on it.
Yeah, I think also I would say, like, from my perspective, the approach we're taking to governance, like the approach we're taking to the product, like the approach we're taking to marketing, is we're really thinking future back. And I think, Adam, you framed it really well. It's like, what happens in 100 years? And, I know a fair number of fund managers in this space and very sophisticated investors. And when they look at projects to assess for, long-term hodling and investment opportunities, essentially, governance is a key part of their algorithms. And are those sort of elements in place? And I think the way that we go about laying this foundation ultimately becomes a competitive advantage for us. And that's, I think, really, really valuable. So it's not just, do we have the world's greatest tech stack? We do. Do we have the world's greatest community? We do. It's, do we also have the best governance? We will. So if you put all those together, that's a pretty strong kind of moat, if you will, in a Web3 sense.
Yeah, there's also, this even comes back to like when I was doing some consultation in the space before working for Radix, and I was consulting with enterprise and people that were kind of outside the blockchain space, but were trying to figure out if they want to join, and actually be surprised how much governance actually came up in those conversations. You'd have people that would be like, yeah, like we kind of understand, like there's some value, maybe there's something interesting we can do here, but there's like, what, how is that network governed? Like, this would literally be one of their questions. It'd be like, how do decisions get made and how do I have the confidence that something isn't going to happen where the network's going to take a left turn and now all the work that I've put into building something on the system isn't going to go in a direction that I don't want? Like, do I get to participate in this some way? Like, who's calling the shots on this stuff? And when you just, when you kind of say, well, miners and a couple things like this, they go, all right, I'm just going to back away from this. Like they want to know that there's some sort of structure. And it's not like they're claiming for like, oh, there must be a centralized authority and we want to make sure there's a government backing this. They're not asking for that. They're just saying, like, there needs to be some sort of structure to this that makes sense to make sure that all the stakeholders are going to be heard in a way that I have confidence that long term this platform is going to be stable and it's going to represent everybody there. And so that to me is like the long-term goal for this.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about like how, we currently, you talked about nation states before, Matt, and like obviously networks, not obviously, but it feels to me that crypto networks are going to be akin to nation states. And so the same way you look at nation states, like for like the free and openness index and all these sort of things, and like how well they protect the rights of their citizens, like, whether it's Finland or, Sudan or whatever, those same types of things are going to evolve and people are going to look like which of these networks, because, just like people will be drawn to the nation states that protect property rights and civil liberties and all that, capital and people will be drawn to the networks that protect their interests in a good way, and governance is going to be a critical part of that. So I think there's a lot. Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Cool. So jumping on to the final question for today is actually one we see quite a lot, and I think it's a really interesting topic on what is the risk that a competitor or someone else could come along after Xi'an is released, take the technology and use that to build a more successful network or a more successful DLT, basically by throwing more money at it or just having somehow more users, whatever. Like, what are we concerned about that? And if not, why not? Russ,
I'm personally not concerned about it. People dramatically underestimate how complex this stuff is and how much why does a thing work a certain way? You can pick any one of 100 elements, especially when we get into Xi'an design, where you say, we have thoroughly bottomed out this discussion, identified 19 different attacks that are being accounted for or fail states and all this kind of stuff. And to explain that decision will take 18 hours, even after all the thinking's been done. If someone thinks they can come and just, hit make and now it's built and it's running and now I can now maintain a thing going forward with the whatever changes or and new adoption that's going to need. It's so impractical that you could build up this wealth of experience and thought we've had and all these documented. This is why a decision went a certain way, and here's all the things. And we come back to it 6 months from now. Remember, we thought of the following things that had to be taken into consideration, and that's why we went this way. So don't forget. It seems like it'd be a good idea to enable feature A. That'd be cool. There's a really good reason we didn't do feature A, and it's all captured here. So. I mean,
and that's when you're trying to describe
you underestimate how hard this stuff is. It's
that's when you're trying to absorb
turn it on.
Yeah, and imagine if I think where this question often comes from is people be like, oh, can someone take this part of your stack and bolt that onto Ethereum? It's like, hey, can you take the scalability part and put that in Ethereum, and now Ethereum is takes off. And again, this is underestimating the complexity of this, where our full stack is extremely difficult to explain, and it has this design thinking. But then if you wanted to try to mate that to different parts of another stack, you basically have reopened all those design questions again. There are integration points and assumptions we're making up and down the stack where the things are co-designed, where you can't simply come in and say all right, you're going to use Cerberus consensus with Avalanche or whatever it is that you're thinking about. And you also can't just bolt the Radix engine onto other consensus mechanisms necessarily and get the same attributes and things that we've gotten out of the system. So, if you wanted to make use of some of our tech, you would have to really deeply understand everything that went into the design into it, and what would have to be changed if you wanted to modify it in some way to be used with a different network. To me, the other part of why I'm not concerned about this is in the enterprise world, I was constantly, we always had people that were very concerned about anytime we had any good idea, we need to immediately patent it. Take it to the lawyers, patent it, because this is our moat around our competitive advantage. And I never actually saw it play out that way. In reality, the people that won were the people that created the technology, understood it, went to market with it. Even if they were a little guy, they still have this advantage of they understand why this thing is important, and they launch it and they start building customers up around it, and it develops this momentum behind it. This is why big companies tend to they don't tend to, if there's a small competitor that shows up, they just tend to show up and just buy the whole thing, because they're look, we're not going to be able to copy their thing and move ahead. This is too much of a threat. Let's just bring them in. In Radix's case, you can't buy Radix. So once we've launched, it's a decentralized network, we're going to continue to develop it. And so, good luck to someone that wants to try to relaunch a new Radix network, or not even, relaunch a new network using our technology and convince people, oh, we're going to be the ones that actually makes this successful, versus the people that originally developed this thing and have built an ecosystem around it, and built a strong community around it, are building bridges to the network, are building applications around the protocol. That is really, really, it's even more difficult to replicate all that in this space than it is with a lot of traditional products. So I don't care about protecting the technology. I don't care about making it closed source or patenting anything. We can be open about it, and we're still going to be, miles ahead of anybody else that wants to try to, take bits and pieces of it.
Awesome.
So no was the answer to that. I think we could have shortened.
No, we're not worried.
Not concerned, and just move on.
We have bigger fish to fry than that.
Well, I think that should wrap up. Yeah. So I think that wraps up for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and everyone for tuning in. If you do have more questions for next time, make sure to drop them in one of our community channels. But until then, speak to you all soon. I'm looking forward to the Adam mug memes. Yes, it's the soup tureen next, and then maybe a tub of some kind. And eventually we have to film with a drone, because Adam's just by a lake where he's drinking tea from. God's eye view of the. Yeah. I don't actually have a bigger. I don't actually have a bigger mug. That's the problem. So it's a community challenge now to supply Adam with a larger mug. You're going to need a bigger mug.